American politics is so bad. What is happening in the world of U.S. politics where we have the absolute worst possible people running for the highest office? New York Attorney General Letitia James threatens to seize Trump's assets if he doesn't pay massive fine. She's coming in hot. I talked about this the other day. Let's see what
the White House.
This is about.
Donald Trump is comparing himself to Alexei Navalny, refusing to criticize Vladimir Putin as he faces the possibility that his assets will be seized if he doesn't pay the fine for committing business fraud. Rachel Scott is on the trail in South Carolina. Good morning, Rachel.
George, good morning. And we are 3 days out from the South Carolina primary. Nikki Haley taking on Donald Trump for those comments, calling him a distraction on the Republican Party and insisting he is weak in the knees when it comes to Russia.
This morning, Donald Trump facing a massive $355 million fine, once again comparing himself to Alexei Navalny when asked about his legal bills.
How will you put up that kind of money? Because you have a bond to put up. Even if you appeal, you got to put up.
He's right, dude. And you should say it. Free the political prisoners. Free the political prisoners. Donald Trump is basically poisoned. Okay. This is exactly what Joe Brandon is doing. Joe Brandon is pretty much Vladimir Putin. Okay. Except also much older somehow and much more senile, and yet simultaneously just as vicious and just as conniving, just as bloodthirsty. How can these two things exist at the same time? I don't really know, but I don't really think about these things too much anyway. After all, I'm a Trump supporter.
Escrow money, that's it's a lot of dough.
It is a form of Navalny. It is a form of communism or fascism.
After days of silence, Trump now calling Navalny's death a sad situation.
I like that in American politics, the dumber you are and the sillier you are, the further you get away from, factually correct information and assessments, the more prescient your takes will be, the more mileage your takes will have. Like, he just said a bunch of different insane things. One, comparing himself to Navalny is crazy right after he got assassinated, okay? Two, making it seem like Russia is communist is also crazy. A conflation of communism and fascism, also crazy. He hit all three. He's like, yes, that's right. Putin is a communist, folks. Putin is a commie. He's a communist fascist. And what Putin has done to Navalny is quite similar to what Biden is doing to me.
But refusing to condemn the man who put the pro-democracy opposition leader in prison, Vladimir Putin.
He was a very brave guy because he went back. He could have stayed away.
Mr. President, do you believe that Putin was responsible for Navalny's death?
Thank you, everybody.
Trump is draining campaign funds to pay for his legal fees, spending $50 million last year and nearly $3 million in January. New York State Attorney General Letitia James speaking exclusively with our Aaron Katersky, insisting she will collect that civil fraud fine, even if it means seizing some of his assets.
We are prepared to make sure that the judgment is paid to New Yorkers. And yes, I look at 40 Wall Street each and every day.
Trump's rival Nikki Haley says that legal drama is all the more reason for Republicans to move on.
I feel no need to kiss the ring. I have no fear of Trump's retribution. He's gotten more unstable and unhinged. He spends more time in courtrooms than he does on the campaign trail.
She's trailing Trump by more than 30 points here in her home state, but still vowing to stay in the race.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm campaigning every day until the last person votes.
So Nikki Haley says, win or lose South Carolina, she is in this race through Super Tuesday. As
That's
for
crazy.
Donald Trump, every day he does not pay back that $355 million fine. He owes more than $87,000 in interest. That is per day. His super PAC spent 90% of its money in January alone on legal fees. Meanwhile, his political rivals, Nikki Haley, President Biden, they are using their campaign funds on actual campaign resources, Robin.
All right, Rachel, thank you.
It's so funny, though.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC.
Yeah, regardless of what they're using their campaign funds on, Trump is still cooking them, dude. That's the wildest part. Nikki Haley could be running literally every ad at the top of the hour, in the middle of the hour, and it doesn't matter because Trump is turning around and using every dollar on his lawyers, and yet the people still love him, okay? Nikki Haley could be gifting subs in here at the top of the hour, every hour, to allow people in here to avoid the 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour, and it still wouldn't matter. That's it. Every time I see a zoom in of Trump's skin, I recognize that that's exactly what my ball sack looked like. He has scrotum skin. Your balls are that tanned? I mean, good on you, brother. Are you doing some ball tanning? We need you, Nikki, right now to save the nation. We need you, Nikki, right now. A conversation. We need you, Nikki, right now. All right, here's the 3-minute ad break now. Winter Rose 96. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. All right, now let's get to the fun stuff.
Hello.
Our king, our goat, Donalde, he went on the Ingraham angle in front of a live audience and spoke truth to power.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham, and this is the Ingraham Angle. Welcome to Greenville, South Carolina. We have an amazing crowd tonight, and we're just 4 days out. I can't believe it. From the South Carolina GOP primary, where 50 delegates are at stake in the march to the nomination. Now, former 2-term South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is poised to lose by a wide margin, but she remained defiant earlier today. We're going to hit all of this and more with the man of the hour. Joining me now, Donald J. Trump.
They love him. Look, obviously they packed this with like the biggest dick riders, usually, no matter what happens. But Ron DeSantis is never getting this reception, even from his most loyal, most passionate fans, okay? That's it. Yeah, he is the white man's Obama, 100%.
Nice crowd.
Welcome, sir. It's always good to see you. It's been a while, been a couple of years since we've done a big event with you like this. And just in time for your appearance today, there's a new Suffolk poll out just now a few days before the big primary. And among those very likely to vote, you're up over Nikki Haley by close to a 2-to-1 margin, 63 to 35.
Wow. I'm just now finding out about this.
Today, she refused to step aside and said this.
Many of the same politicians who now publicly embrace Trump privately dread him. They know what a disaster he's been and will continue to be for our party. Some people used to say I was running because I really wanted to be vice president. I think I've pretty well settled that question.
Has she settled that question?
Well, I settled it about 3 months ago. She's not working. She's here. She's down by 30, 35 points. And everybody knows her. You're not supposed to lose your home state. Shouldn't happen anyway. And she's losing it big. I mean, really, I said bigly and bigly too. She's losing it bigly, but we're gonna really do a job, I think.
That's one of the hits. He's playing to the crowd, dude. He's playing the hits. My boy, dude. My boy.
As you know, when we went to Iowa, we got the biggest margin in the history of the caucus, the biggest, that's a long time.
Why do you think she's staying in the race?
I don't think she knows how to get out, actually. I really don't. She did terribly in New Hampshire. She got the only vote she got was from Democrats.
But she has a lot of money behind her. What do they think they're getting?
Well, they're trying to hurt me because of the general election. So the Democrats are giving her money, and she's playing into the game. And I think she just can't get herself to get out. She's doing poorly in the polls. Look, if she was doing well, I'd understand it. But she's doing very poorly. She lost in record numbers in Iowa, record numbers in New Hampshire, Nevada. No name beat. No name. We had no name.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News.
She and Biden have like almost, in a way, some would say team up together. They're Biden's people to say, look, if you're going to complain about age, Trump's demeanor, Trump makes mistakes, forgets names. She's trying to equate Biden's decline, which is fairly obvious, with you for being, 77.
Well, he's declined, and there's no question about it, but he was always sort of semi-declined if you go back 25 years. No, but he was not one of the smarter people. He's tried to be president many times, 4 times at least that they know of, and all of a sudden when he's most diminished, this is when he hit, and he did it.
Okay, there is a little bit of irony here because Trump did that too. Like, Donald Trump also notoriously ran for president, not as many times I don't think as Biden did, and he also failed until he did win the presidency at his most diminished. So he's not wrong about Biden, but like says you, God, it's so funny. It's just like American politics is so bad. It's so bad. What is happening? What is happening in the world of U.S. politics where we have like the worst possible people, man? We have the absolute worst possible people running for the highest office. The election feels like a mimetic reference of a presidential election. Yeah, this is the most chat GPT ass presidential election. Filler arc, to be honest. We need to be put on a one pace.
But if you look at me, I feel, and I really mean this, and I would tell you, and I think you tell me too, because we've known each other a long time. If I felt diminished, okay, let's use a nice term. If I felt diminished or declined any way, I think I'd know it. And I think I'd say, I'm not running. Somebody should talk to him. But if he runs, he runs. He doesn't seem to be, I heard you say that he's very persistent, and he probably is. I think most people, I think that most people that run would be stubborn or persistent and, just not want to give up the ghost. But, we have a nation to run. We have a nation that has to survive. We have nuclear weapons and the likes of which, and you don't even want to know about it, the most powerful weapons in the history of the world, so powerful that you don't even want to talk about them. And we have him negotiating for us. And in his best years, he couldn't have negotiated well. Now he has no clue what's happening. And I know Putin very well, and I know President Xi of China. I know them all. Kim Jong-un, I know very well. I did a great job with him.
Do you think they'd prefer him to remain as president because they believe that they can dominate the global, the global situation much easier with him in office?
Well, they want him very badly to be president. I mean, I'm sure a lot of money is being spent on between Russia and China, no question with China, Russia too. Look, Ukraine would have.
It is pretty crazy that Vladimir Putin, like last week, said that he much prefers Biden as an elderly statesman to Donald Trump. That he said that he could reasonably negotiate. I mean, it's a funny ass troll technically, but you think that's mind games or not? No, I don't think he's. Yeah, no, I don't think he's being serious. Listen, I don't trust anything that Vladimir Putin says. Okay, that's not me saying this specifically because I'm quote unquote worried about about how much the pro-Ukrainian audience hates me or something. They already do hate me. He just anytime he's saying a statement that is going to be perceived by the West, it's the exact opposite of what you think when you're looking at like a country like Israel. The Israeli organs of propaganda don't even tailor their messaging to the Western audience when they're directly communicating with the Western audience anymore because they know that they have a comfortable barrier of protection no matter what happens. So they just fucking blurt it out. They're like, yeah, fuck you, fuck off. No two-state solution, bitch. What are you going to do about it? Keep sending us child murder bombs, please. When Russia or Vladimir Putin says something that's like Western facing, it's the exact opposite. It could be a left hook. It could be a secret gut punch. It could be anything. It could be completely honest, or it could be absolutely a way to troll. Are you 35 yet? No, I'm not. Isn't the tide shifting towards the Palestinian cause? I mean, the tide shift doesn't mean anything when it comes to foreign policy. This is something that I've tried to describe to people so much. Foreign policy is not an issue until it becomes the issue. Okay? And because there is so much bipartisan support historically for Israel, no matter what Israel does, like I see a tide shift in an election year. There has been a dramatic tide shift in the reception of Israel amongst the American population, okay? But that still doesn't change course. That still won't change the course for American politicians. If you think that the American political structure relies on popular support for anything, look no further than the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Look no further than a lack of socialized medicine. Things that are seen, things that are decisions that are inherently anti-capitalist or hurt the bottom line, hurt the profit margins. These decisions are never going to be genuinely championed, regardless of how popular they are. That's it. There needs to be a significant public disruption for Israel-Palestine to become a huge issue for politicians. We're not there yet. I mean, it is a massive sea change for sure. This is something that I have talked about for many, many years. As you guys know, I've talked about Israel-Palestine for a decade now. Very publicly, very vocally in support of Palestine, in support of Palestinian emancipation. Israel is an apartheid state. And throughout that time, I saw a genuine seismic shift in the public attitude in 2021 after a lot of those NGOs started openly declaring Israel an apartheid state, which it is, and it was. And ever since then, every single time Israel has actually engaged in the same old violent actions that it has engaged in perpetuity towards the Palestinians, there has been more and more public support for the Palestinians. Now, will that actually change the attitude of the politicians? I don't think so. But yes, the state that we're at currently, it is actually an unimaginable sea change, for sure. Every single person that has been an activist for this cause for decades will tell you that this is a genuinely different attitude that most people have. I was watching a video of you from 2022 talking about Palestine. I was pleasantly surprised to see your consistency on it. Wish I was that brave. I mean, you can go back further than 2022 to see my consistency on it. I've been talking about this very publicly for almost 10 years now, since the beginning of my political career. I mean, here's one
of the greatest injustices of our time unfolding right before our eyes is the Israeli treatment of Palestinians. And to understand it, you need to look no further than the treatment at the border of Gaza versus the Jerusalem U.S. Embassy unveiling.
This is from 2018. It's got 15,000 views.
That was happening at the exact same time. Now, I'm writing this on the heels of the U.S. Embasy's launch in Jerusalem, something that every presidential candidate
6 years
pays
ago
lip
now.
service to, only to symbolically postpone.
Literally 6 years ago.
It is until Donald Trump. And the reason for why every American president has postponed this move is because it's incredibly controversial. And because of that, there have been peaceful attempts at protesting this move from Gaza, but Israel has brutally attacked these peaceful protesters at the border.
Why the סרטון! Yes!
Now, at the time I'm writing this piece, the death count on Monday alone currently sits at 50 Palestinians dead, 7 of whom are children and 1 paramedic.
I can't show you. This is like on TYT. I straight up would like show a lot of this stuff without censoring it, even though I would definitely moderate my takes.
Of course, Hamas is using human shields, right, to gain international support. So why the fuck are you killing them then, if you know that? Also, only 40 miles away at the same exact time, this is happening. You can't make this shit up. And what you need to understand about Gaza is that it's been under Israeli control for decades, especially after the people elected Hamas, an Islamist group that seeks to liberate Gaza through violent retaliation. Now, Israel has used Hamas as a justification for everything from stopping humanitarian aid, from rolling tanks into Gaza to full-tilt missile strikes, and has even resorted to using violence against neighboring countries like Turkey, for example, where a humanitarian aid ship was overtaken by an IDF helicopter and the people in it were slaughtered. At the time, Israel defended the killings by arguing that these kitchen knives on the ship were weapons being brought into Gaza. And don't forget that the Israeli government helped create Hamas back in the 1980s as a counterweight to Yasser Arafat's PLO. Israel has also supported the construction of unlawful settlements all over the Palestinian West Bank, which the world correctly considers state-sponsored settler terrorism.
Damn, bro. But what about dudes that read a Wikipedia article like 3 months ago to start cooking up their takes? I'm sure those guys are the foremost authority on the subject matter. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let's make more drama videos about how, like, oh, this guy said it was a JDAM. It's like little shits who don't know their fucking ass from their elbow coming in here. It's like, and being like, oh, well, I watched a drama video from a dude who literally knows nothing about Israel nor Palestine, and I've decided you don't know what you're talking about. How do you look older in this video? Longer hair, longer beard.
All of this is normal supremacist protocol.
Yeah, Hasan only says what his audience wants to hear at the time is one of the most brain-dead takes I often see. Yeah, I love that. Definitely what my audience wanted to hear back then, and certainly now as well. I watched a vid from someone who loves Keemstar. That's how I got here. Yeah, I must be pandering to chat.
But here in the United States, this violence has been justified and propped up by not only the Republicans in the Trump administration, but also by our beloved #resistance Democrats.
Let me tell you why we don't have peace. Of course, we say it's our land. The Torah says it, but they don't believe in the Torah. So that's the reason there is not peace.
This is literally 4th grade Hebrew school bullshit that most people grow out of, but not Chuck Schumer, who thanked Trump today for the embassy move. Thank you for your service, Mr. President, sir. Also, Chuck, you've done nothing to protect DACA immigrants or the middle class. What good is the Democratic Party if they're just going to serve as a doormat that Republicans step all over when doing whatever the fuck they want with U.S. policy, both domestic and foreign?
They invent other reasons, but they do not believe in a Jewish state, and that is why we in America must stand strong with Israel through thick and thin. We must, because that is the reason why there is not peace in the Middle East.
How uniquely regressive is it to justify supremacist imperialism with religious dogma? It's literally the opposite of everything Democrats are supposed to stand for. Schumer is currently the most powerful Democrat in the nation. How can we defend gay marriage or being pro-choice or even the consumption of shellfish for that matter when the man tasked with being the voice of progressive values in this country is using the fucking Torah to claim that this is the Holy Land? Also, here's another reason why this biblical justification is insane.
The king of Persia, who 1,000 years before Muhammad was even born, that said Jerusalem was the capital of the Jewish people's country.
Whenever we hear this sort of rambling coming from a mullah or any sort of Muslim figure, we're quick to claim that Islam is a dangerous religion, perhaps the most dangerous religion. But Jeanine Pirro rambling this on national television is totally fine. The eradication of Palestinians is justified because religion, the good kind. Islam is the violent and bad religion, on the other hand, because when George W. Bush says God told him to invade Iraq, then it's all justified.
We've begun the search for hidden chemical and biological weapons.
And look, I'm not condoning what Hamas is.
I feel like it was sharper then. Do you too, like Biden, have a problem due to age? Yes. In my old age of 32. You seem more angry back then, but I think it's because you're kind of numb now. Yes, it's the vaccines. They made me gay and autistic. I've been getting ass blasted for having the exact same takes in the dumbest ways possible. This is also scripted and rehearsed too.
Is done either. Killing innocents is not okay, no matter what the cause is. But you have to see that
Here's what Facebook did to this video, by the way. Oh yeah. Yep. Why don't we extend sympathy to when Israel slaughters 50 plus Palestinians under its occupation? Facebook is collaborating with the Israeli government to determine what should be censored. Because it's fake news. They were known terrorists, not innocent people. Oh, man. I'm tired, dude. I'm fucking tired.
It's almost impossible to remain neutral when anyone is being subjected to this level of violent injustice. And condemning this violence or criticizing the Israeli government for its actions is not anti-Semitism. An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I ask you to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and the Israelis who are protesting against the violent, inhumane actions of the Israeli military that represent a far greater threat to the safety of the people of this region by escalating this conflict. Piker.
As Tupac said, a young man in his 20s has his 20s to be a revolutionary because by the 30s, the system is to suck all hope out of him. Bro, I'm going to be honest, dude. Like, this video's tone is too hot to post October 7. Would be written off. We need an updated calm version. Is politics just the same cycle of problems because no one does anything about them? So any take from 6 years ago apply now. You can watch pretty much every single You can watch pretty much every single one of my breakdown videos from back then, and I'm saying the exact same things. I've been repeating myself for the past 10 years, okay? And that's only because I've just been active for the past 10 years. That's it. Obviously, the same issues persist since 1948 or even before 1948, as a matter of fact. But however, when I was saying this back then, something to consider here is this video is from 2018. Okay. When I was saying this stuff back then, it was infinitely less popular than it is now. You should do this kind of videos again. I'm actually listening to you. I wish I knew about you back then. I was such a red pill loser. That's why I started doing what I'm doing now. Because I realized that, I mean, these videos were great. They were bangers and whatnot. But what you have to remember is that this format that I'm engaging in was infinitely better to develop charitability, to show people that I'm a human being and not some like libtard who's constantly hysterical. Anyway, let's move on from this and let's get back to my goat, Donald Trump.
Have never happened. I know Putin so well, and it was the apple of his eye. Ukraine was the apple of his eye. I said, don't ever do it. It would have never happened, by the way.
We're going to get into that in a
happened.
minute, but back to Biden and his current state, whatever you want to call it. Will you challenge him to regular debates, regardless of the concern about the moderators?
Rojo Tortuga. Thank you for the 20 gifted subs, my friend. Red Turtle.
I know that's always annoying, but I'll be happy to moderate one, by the way. Would you challenge him? Come on, Joe, you can do it. Will you challenge him to a debate regularly on focused specific topics? In other words, so it's not a wide-ranging, just one debate on foreign policy.
Well, I'll do it right now on your show. I'll challenge him right now, and we can do you can do anybody you want. I'll take anybody from CNN, which is doing very poorly in the ratings, by the way, as you probably know. I'll take anybody, because I think you have an obligation in this case. You really have an obligation to debate. When it came to the Republicans, I was up by 40, 50, 60.
By the way, what a wonderful way to segue back into how silly debates are in general. This is a perfect example. Do you think that you will arrive at the truth in a debate between Donald Trump and Joe Robin Biden? No, of course not. But will it be content? Of course. That's it.
60 points, like being up on her. I think a poll just came out. I'm at 91 and she's at 7. And would you debate? You want to be smart. You don't have to waste your time doing certain
But that would be
debates.
instructive to see you versus Biden on any given topic.
Regardless of poll numbers. I'm way up on him now in the polls. And frankly, I think we have an obligation. When you have the final Republican, the final Democrat, you have the two people you have to debate regardless of polls.
How many debates would you commit to?
As many as necessary. I would like to do it starting now. I don't think he's going to debate, though. I really don't think so. I mean, we had a debate where he, at the end of the debate, he admitted I was right about almost everything, but in particular on energy. Do you remember? I said, I feel like Perry Mason, the way you just collapsed. And he admitted.
And what happened? You lost the election, dog.
Everything about energy, and that's what actually happened, and that's why your energy costs went up 3 and 4 times. I mean, we had $1.87, and he was up to $5, $6, $7, and that's going to happen immediately after the election. Let's not even talk about if he wins. We can't allow it to win. We're not going to have a country left. But that's going to be, you will have energy costs, and this whole concept of all electric, everybody having an electric vehicle, they don't go far. People don't want that. They want everything. They may want electric, but they also want other choices.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
Chapo's Will had the perfect take on debates. My politics are based on morality. There's no magic combination of words that are going to get me to agree Palestinian children deserve to be slaughtered. Yeah, but if you're... That's why debates work for a very specific type of audience, and that's why I personally engage in it when I see fit, okay? Because there are a lot of people who are relatively out of touch and care simply about the blood sport, okay? In many instances, those people are very reactionary because the further you are away from empathizing with the victims of any kind of structural violence, whether it be, genocidal actions of Israel, or whether it be, I don't know, police brutality in America, if you have no capacity to understand, what those conditions look like, okay, then you are going to be susceptible to someone who comes across like a monster, like a titan in a debate, because you don't have morality is not factored into your equation at all, or empathy is not factored into your equation at all. At that point, you're simply looking for someone to hand you talking points so you can seem smarter. And there is definitely utility in that, which is why I always say 40% of the audience is completely, 40% of each side in a debate is firm in their position. They're not going to change, right? But the 20% in between, 10% from one side, 10% from the other side, they can actually have their opinion shift a little bit. That still doesn't change the pseudo-intellectual wrestling component of debates, ultimately. But you can pick someone's audience a little bit. You can pick into their audience a little bit. And then slowly but surely help them develop their own moral framework through consistency. Right? That's it. I saw you're with Piers Morgan. I don't want to go and exaggerate what is your worth. You're great. However, I would appreciate that you give stats, facts, and truths whenever you want to call it, and let your audience decide. Much love, though. Well, you're in for a whirlwind of emotion then, because I do that all the time. You can see a lot of the facts that I use on my YouTube videos if you would like to dive in a little bit further. What is this? People do respond to strong rhetoric, Hasan. I agree. You're hot. It helps if you haven't had your views challenged, though. You're hot and I like your politics, so I'll overlook this L take. This is not an L take. This is a W take. Debates are only an entry point into seeing someone else's perspective. Okay? That's it. It's simply an entry point. If that is your beginning and end, if that is all you look for, then you will never be able to develop a solid moral framework. You'll simply keep repeating the talking points of a person who is claiming that they have developed that. Here. People in Destiny's community know your position. If you keep getting stuck on it so much, it shows that you seem triggered, therefore losing in the marketplace of ideas, which, by the way, is also indicative that, like, most people's understanding of debates are fucking idiotic. Further evidence that debates are not good for arriving at the truth and just simply about overwhelming your opponent rhetorically. There you go. Debates are good at opening up the door to intellectual curiosity, but many people don't peek in. That's my point. I hope that explains things a little bit better for you. It's not even debates. It's something called heuristic in philosophy and rhetoric. Heuristic refers to an argument that aims to successfully dispute another's argument rather than searching for the truth. Anyway, you should have a stream where you don't talk at all and just play your old clips. I mean, it's basically every stream. All right. Donald Trump. Migrant crime will be worse than any other form of crime.
Questions we've been hearing from voters here is, how do you plan to deport the millions of people? I mean, there's probably 12, 13 million people under Biden alone that have come here. And how will it work?
It's going to work that we get the bad ones out first. They're coming in from prisons. They're coming in from jails and mental institutions.
How will you find them?
We're going to find them through local police. Look, the local police, they're so phenomenal. I love them. They love me. I think I have 97% support. They know everything. They know the first names. They know everything. And it's a new category. I don't know if you've heard this, but I came up with this one: migrant crime. There's crime, there's violent crime, there's migrant crime. We have a new category of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's going to be worse than any other form of crime. You look at New York City, what's going on where they attack police. They want to fight police officers. Our criminals don't even do that so much.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different kind of crime, I promise. Love that they're still running with that false narrative, by the way. God. The cops were literally straight up beating on the dudes for no reason. We now know that. And yet, it doesn't matter because the Fox News audience never saw that. They never saw the full video. They never saw the body camera footage. And it works perfectly along with the biases that they already had towards like immigrants. So they're just going to go along with that false narrative over and over and over again. Now, obviously, what you're supposed to do in that situation is recognize that crime is a byproduct of social conditions regardless. And that, of course, there are going to be undocumented immigrants that do crime, even violent ones, just like documented citizens, just like natural-born U.S. citizens, right? It's going to happen. So what you have to look at is not whether it is an undocumented immigrant that has done a crime or not, but the tendency for undocumented immigrants to cause violent crime. That's where empirical evidence comes into play. And unfortunately for Trump and all of the other right-wing shitheads that regularly talk about immigration being a source of major crime, the empirical evidence shows the exact opposite. That undocumented immigrants, time and time again, have been consistently shown to cause less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens. And there are obvious reasons for that, such as even if you have a broken tail light and you're an undocumented immigrant, you're fucked. You could potentially get deported. So if you're an undocumented immigrant, and there's like 12 million plus undocumented immigrants in this country currently that have been here for a very long time, some of which have been here for decades at this point, that go about their daily life trying to avoid any interaction whatsoever with the police. See what I did there? I showed you empirical evidence. And then I paired that up with my perspective on the matter. A little bit of critical thinking plus empirical evidence will help you arrive at the truth in a much better way. You are susceptible to your biases when you look at anecdotes. Anecdotes are very good at propagandizing a position, but anecdotes are exactly how you arrive at the wrong position if you operate off of them.
Okay? I've never seen them having fistfights with the police officers in the middle of the street. And we have to do something about it. These are tough people. Don't forget, they're not sending their finest. I know all the leaders of the South American.
Well, they really hit you when you said that in 2015. You said
they're not sending their finest.
And now all these years later.
I hate that. I hate that take. Such a gross, lame-ass take. Real shame that the Democratic Party basically agrees with that now.
Everything turned out to be right.
Well, CBC is telling us that.
Unfortunately.
Customs and Border Patrol announced yesterday that just in 3 days, 452 Chinese nationals have been apprehended by Border Patrol. And Mr. President, 20,000 Chinese have entered since October.
Yep.
Okay, does this concern you more than other immigrant groups?
Probably it would, because it's China, and maybe what are they building an army in between? It was 29,000 people in the last year. Think of it, 29,000 people, and most of those people were young, male, fighting age, okay? So
what's going on?
Look, you want to give the benefit of the doubt, but China was number one. And you look at Yemen, now they're coming in with bombing. Here we go again with this guy bombing everything, gets no respect. He bombs and bombs, bombing Yemen.
Well, they're bombing
and
us.
We have a lot of
rebels.
Yemenis are coming into our country. We have people coming in from everywhere. They're coming in from the Congo. They interviewed some people last night. Where are you from? Congo. Where did you live? Prison. They're emptying out their prisons into
What's
our
the first thing you will do if you become president again on the border? I know that's going to be your first
There's
act.
two things I'm going to do. Number one is drill, baby, drill. And the other thing, equal, is we're going to Look, I had the safest border in the history of our country, recorded history, because I can't tell you about 1,000 years ago, but recorded history of the border by far. We had it down pat between guys like Tom.
1,000 years ago? What does he mean by this? In the year 1024, what was the border protocols for the non-existent nation of the United States of America by the indigenous tribes that occupied the land? What are we doing here? He's like, folks, you don't understand. This guy, Leif Erikson, right? Everybody always says Amerigo Vespucci. They say Marco, I say Polo. But everyone really knows it's that Leif Erikson, Viking, comes in to the American shores, washes over. I say to them, what did the natives do, folks? They gave him blankets. They gave him an opportunity to smoke the peace pipe. The natives were terrible on border control. They should have immediately handed his ass back, sent his ass back on a dinghy. I'm too old for Twitch. Thank you for the 10 give the subs.
Tom Homan and Brandon Judd and unbelievable people that you have on your show. We had a great, all Biden had to do is stay at the beach. You know, he goes to the beach. Somebody said he looks great in a bathing suit. So he goes to the beach. If he went to the beach and didn't do it, but he canceled everything, remain in Mexico, catch and release. We have catch and release, but we had release in Mexico.
Why were you against the House, against the Senate border deal, the bipartisan border?
Well, they allow 5,000 people a week, but a lot of people took it as 5,000 people a day. They said 5,000 people a week, and you read it, and it says 5,000 people a day. Number one, that, but it also made it much better for the opposing side.
Regularized, managed the crisis.
You couldn't manage it. It was so complex. You're talking about, first of all, if you want to close the border.
It's good that we tried to concede on the border stuff with the party that loves this guy and is like voting for him no matter what. Surely his fans have a real perspective, you know, guided by evidence on the issue of immigration. Surely they're not just like a bunch of racist monsters who are interested in voting for this guy purely on the motivated reasoning that comes from being a white supremacist and the anger and resentment that they feel towards like whatever he has decided is the bi-coastal liberal elites that have fucked up their lives. Surely it would be a good idea to say that guy, you know, he made some good points, so we should be the party that passes the border control bill. Because like the underlying premise that he suggested that we in the Democratic Party shit on, justifiably, as racist for years and years was actually correct. Turns out. We believe it now. Yeah, immigrants aren't, you know, these nations aren't sending their best, actually. We have to do something. Immigration is a matter of national security, as a matter of fact. We've decided as the Democratic Party that that's how it works. That's great. That's great, man.
Your president. I didn't have any legislation. I had people opposed to me very strongly, including Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan and Nancy Pelosi. That was a little triumvirate. And what I did after a year, I said, you know what, these people, I took the money out. We built 571 miles of border wall, and that's what made our border so good. We did another thing. I got 28,000 soldiers.
Interesting, once again, to think about the reality that those same Democrats have, one, used eminent domain to continue the expansion of the border wall that they called racist, and also packaged a funding mechanism for the continuation of the border wall in the legislation that they were pushing for this last time around. So, again, really smart stuff, really good politics, really good job, Democrats. Hell yeah.
Soldiers from Mexico. I sent to the president of Mexico, who I really like a lot. I think he's a terrific guy. He's a socialist, but a terrific guy. And he's fantastic, actually, in a lot of ways. I said, we need 28,000 soldiers to guard our border. He said, you got to be kidding.
Well,
I ended up getting, free of charge, 28,000. We had the safest border we've ever had. Now, we have the most unsafe, we have the worst border in the history of the world. There's never been a border of any country anywhere in the world that's been like
Biden has announced, well, they've hinted that he's going to come out with a border executive order on the border to clamp down.
That could be seen as being bipartisan and acknowledging what some people do want. Yeah, dude, that's great. I love that. Except it's false. It is built around a false narrative. So who gives a fuck if you want to come across as bipartisan surrounding a false narrative? What do you mean? Yeah. Leadership requires moral courage. Okay? That's why you look back in history at figures like Abraham Lincoln and many others who did the right thing at a time when they could have said, well, for the sake of bipartisanship, I'm going to decide that maybe slavery isn't that bad. After all, that is precisely what many people are on board with, right?
On illegal immigration before the State of the Union message. I thought he said he didn't have the executive authority.
So I do believe that he's baked in. I don't think he can ever even come close unless people are really stupid, which they're not. The public is much smarter than the politicians. He's not going to be able to change. He's not going to be able to change it.
Anyway.
Robert Hur, the special prosecutor.
Why do you have a problem with Biden doing the right thing at the border? It's clearly a crisis here. The real crisis is thinking that this is a good enough debate at the top of the hour to get me to read your comments so you can turn around and say at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break. There is a crisis. See? Exactly. There you go. There's a crisis in this chat. 2 different crises. One, obviously, that, yeah, if you're not subscribed, you're about to see a 3-minute ad break. Okay? The second crisis, however, is a crisis of low-hanging fruit. A lot of chatters have now decided that the easiest way to get me to read your comments at the top of the hour is by saying something silly. This has caused many chatters to refuse to do really cool ad break debates. Put the ad break message in the original message. Don't try to do a 2-parter. You will always get got. Just like you will get got at the top of the hour if you are caught unsubscribed. Here's the 3-minute ad break now.
In the Biden classified documents case, I don't know if you know this, but he's set to testify on Capitol Hill on March 12th. What is one question you're hoping the Republicans or someone who has some honesty up there will ask Mr. Hur? And should Biden have been charged in the classified documents case?
Well, nobody else has been over the years because, you know, Hillary took a lot and Bill took a lot. Bill took them out in his socks. They call it the socks case, which he won with a very tough judge, which he won. Bush took him. Everybody, Reagan took him out. Everybody took him out. It only became a big subject when I took things out. The difference is I had what's called the Presidential Records Act. I was allowed to do what I did. Absolutely allowed. That's why they passed the act in 1978. They passed the Presidential Records Act. But you can only use it or be there if you're president. Biden wasn't president. He was vice president.
Why didn't you just hand him over when they were requested, though? I mean, they requested him. You could have just handed him over. Probably saved yourself a lot of trouble.
First of all, I didn't have to hand him over. But second of all, I would have done that. We were talking, and then all of a sudden they raided Mar-a-Lago. Do you remember? They said, could you put an extra lock on the door? We showed them where they were. We showed them. Unlike being under a Corvette in a little garage with the door open all the time, we had these things locked. We were surrounded all the time by many Secret Service agents. We had Secret Service all over Mar-a-Lago. You couldn't take anything out. But what happened, and when you take a look, Biden didn't have the Presidential Records Act. He's at great jeopardy, really. But they said, look, he's incompetent to go to court, but he can be president. Figure that one. In other words, he can't represent himself at court because he's incompetent.
What should Hur be asked? What should he be asked?
Well, I just think you have to ask, why did you do it? You didn't have the Presidential Records Act, and how did you do it as senator? You know, Dick Durbin, a senator, said there's no way he did that as senator. And then when he found out, you know, it's pretty serious.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to...
I found something crazy. Breaking news, Turkey has blocked access to Kick, the Kick platform owned by the international gambling company Stake. Turkish officials I spoke to stated that Kick's entry into Turkey was to attract Turkish youth to the roulette tables. When I wrote this news, some publishers accused me of lying and targeted me. I hope they know how to apologize, but I don't think so. You are disgraced, and you will remain disgraced for life. İbrahim Haskoloğlu. BPT, according to information, says Kick and Twitch platforms. Edinilen bilgiye göre Kick ve Twitch platformları için aktif bir BTK incelemesi bulunmamaktadır. Oh, this is saying that this is like saying it's incorrect. Does Turkey have heavy regulations on gambling? One of the biggest Turkish slot streamers streams on Twitch. He's a 30. The biggest Turkish slot streamer streams on Twitch is a 30K Andy. Yeah, I think he's like he's like Turkish but living in Germany or something, right? He's a German Turk. Yeah, it'd be real funny to think that I have anything to do with the Turkish government making such decisions, especially considering that the government in Turkey is not exactly fond of my positions at all, nor are they fond of me. So, yeah, Twitter Translate still works because it's Google. Anyway, let's watch this. Donald Trump, we're turning into a communist country.
People around the world are expressing outrage over the death of Alexei Navalny, of course, in a horrific Russian prison. You posted on Truth Social about it. You said that his death made you more aware of the political circumstances here at home.
It's happening here.
Specifically your rivals. I want to give you the chance to expand on that because obviously your opponents have used that to say, again, pro-Putin, don't care about human rights or freedom, the freedom movement. And so what does...
For the record, when Trump says we're turning into a communist country, and because I saw a chatter be like, well, how is that a bad thing? Okay, obviously it's a falsehood regardless, but what if it was real? Why would this be a bad thing? It doesn't have to be. Like, he's not saying this because he's saying this specifically because he never has to make an argument that communism is a bad thing. That is the normative position of the average American. That's just what they believe. Communism is a sticker that you can slap onto anything to say it's bad. You will never be able to tackle that. That's why they say Nancy Pelosi and Jeff Bezos are communists, for example.
What does that mean when you said it made you more aware of your circumstances here?
Navalny is a very sad situation, and he's very brave. He was a very brave guy because he went back. He could have stayed away. And frankly, probably would have been a lot better off staying away and talking from outside of the country as opposed to having to go back in because people thought that could happen, and it did happen. And it's a horrible thing. But it's happening in our country, too. We are turning into a communist country in many ways. And if you look at it,
just like Russia. Doesn't he like Putin? He likes Putin being a strong man. This is the age-old debate. Putin likes Trump because Trump is manageable. Okay? Putin likes Trump because Trump is easy to dupe and easy to manage. Just sing his praises a little bit, and he'll come and also obviously say you're going to build a Trump Tower or some shit, and you'll be able to get a lot of access from the head of state, a lot more than you would in comparison to other heads of state. Trump likes Putin because Putin is a strong man. He likes Putin in the same way that he likes Xi Jinping. If you listen to how Trump talks about Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un, he will always praise their authoritarian tendencies. He likes how much power they have. He likes how much control they have. Okay? But as far as like Trump being pro-Russia, for example, he said some interesting stuff about Russia, I'll admit. But overall, I don't think he is like pro-Putin or will outwardly be pro-Putin ever. And he loved Duterte, where he would just murder people. Yeah, exactly. He even praised Duterte for his psychotic murder, his psychotic murderous operation. Xi earned his control and his incredibly high approval, something no U.S. president has achieved. U.S. presidents will never need to achieve that. It doesn't matter.
The leading candidate, I got indicted. I never heard of being indicted before. I got indicted 4 times. I have 8 or 9 trials, all because of the fact that and you know this, all because of the fact that I'm in politics. They indicted me on things that are so ridiculous. Fanny in Atlanta.
We'll get into that. We're going to get into that in a moment. But we're going to get into my favorite DA in a moment. But do you see yourself?
There's no logic in killing the opposition leader himself a month before the elections. Yeah, but it still happened. There's no logic in invading Ukraine. Also, the election isn't real anyway, but the West killed him. Yeah, shut up, guys. You're fucking nuts. Yeah, the Russian election. Come on. Let's be for fucking real. There also wasn't a logical reason to invade Ukraine, and yet Putin did that anyway. So much so that you still have people being like, well, he did it to protect Donbass. Yeah, Donbass stands real protected right now. There's nothing more protective than putting minefields in every corner of the area that you're protecting with like hundreds of thousands of people dying in the process.
As a potential political prisoner in the United States, because that's their goal, is to put you in jail behind your bars, right, for the rest of your life.
If I were losing in the polls, they wouldn't even be talking about me, and I wouldn't have had any legal fees.
If you had retired from politics, would all these
cases... If I were out, I think, although they hate me so much, I think if I got out, they'd still, let's pursue this guy. We can't stand this guy. Look, I won an election that wasn't supposed to be winnable.
The invasion did undermine SWIFT. If you want to think bigger picture, no shot. No, there is no, like what you think like Putin was doing 7D chess invading so that like they would get sanctions and be able to withstand the sanctions. No shot, especially because the invasion made Russia into a paper tiger, one that is still violent enough that it gives ample justification for every other country, regalvanizes support for NATO. Okay. NATO support is at an all-time high in Europe. SWIFT is the SWIFT payment system. 90% of global commerce happens with the dollar. America or not 90, 80%, sorry. America basically controls 80% of all international trade. Hasan, it is a civil war since 2014. You are such a purity fetishist. I am not a purity fetishist. If your argument is that Putin invaded to end the civil war, okay, it is no different than saying Putin invaded to denazify Ukraine. These are ridiculous. These are ridiculous reasons to invade a country because all you've done is create more death and destruction. So you fucking ruined the whole, like, I'm doing this to save people narrative. Okay. And you've also basically lost support in eastern parts of the country that may have supported you prior to the invasion by blowing their shit up and killing their family members. And I mean, they don't really have a say in the process regardless because they're just plebs in general. But beyond that, the notion that like you've denazified the country is also silly because you've actually given way more credence to the nationalistic sentiment in the nation that is now invaded. BRICS still supports Russia, so you're kind of wrong. Yeah, dude, I know. I'm a BRICS truther myself. I'm bricked up. How does one actually talk about the real Nazism and fascism in Ukraine without being seen as a supporter of Russia or that narrative? I mean, I've talked about it far before 2022 and have continued to talk about it. They're going to say you're pro-Putin regardless, so it doesn't matter. You just have to eat that L. Yeah. I think that it was a real crisis in faulty intelligence as well. That's the other part of it. I don't think that Vladimir Putin personally thought that he would have such a hard time dismantling or achieving air superiority over Ukraine, which he never was able to get. So that's another miscalculation in my opinion. Because if he was to at least achieve air superiority over Ukraine and maybe do like a calculated decapitation of the Ukrainian leadership, then yes, a lot of the other countries would be genuinely fearful of Russia's expansion, but Finland and Sweden, but especially Finland, because they had a dual neutrality agreement, not on paper, but a handshake agreement for neutrality, would be thinking a little bit harder about the potential for an invasion from a force that could overtake them with ease. Once they recognize that Putin could not even achieve air superiority over Ukraine, and was having a hard time overtaking the entirety of Ukraine, they realized, well, he's too busy with that shit. He can't come to us as well. That gave them the freedom to join NATO, something that I've brought up a lot, as a matter of fact. And another massive miscalculation for Putin. The way you speak sounds like Ukraine is winning the war. Of course it's not winning the war, but neither is Russia. Bro, come on, stop talking about Russia. You're out of your element. I know. You're right. I'm so out of my element. How is Navalny considered opposition? What do you think Navalny's position was in both Russian society and the way that he was perceived by the Western world, both for Russians in diaspora, but also Russians living in Russia, specifically younger Russians, for example? He was a placeholder for anti-Putin sentiment. He's a puppet of the Zionists. Okay, dude. Yeah. Vladimir Putin, on the other hand, not a puppet of the Zionists, okay? Remember, Russia, not a major ally to Israel, okay? Why? Because Vladimir Putin says stuff like, hey, Israel, cut it out, because they voted for a ceasefire. Bro, Putin himself is a Zionist. What are we talking about? In the same exact way that Erdogan is. Israel famously gave the Iron Dome to Ukrainians because they hate Russians so much. Yeah. Navalny was literally a non-factor politically in Russia, funded by the NED and even shown to be so by Western-funded polling. He never reached above 19% popularity, which happened only when he was poisoned. Let me go over this again. What's the copium for the falling of Avdiivka? There is no copium there. The real copium is thinking that like overtaking the higher position of Avdiivka is actually like a profound military achievement after so many people died in the process. Wow, dude. Putin is really killing it, dude. He's destroying it. Now, the other part about this conversation, the other thing that you brought up, okay, is that Navalny is a non-factor politically in Russia. 19% popularity, which happened only after he was poisoned. Does this not help you understand that his popularity increased in Russia after he was poisoned by Vladimir Putin? Does that not basically prove exactly the point I'm making? That even 19% popularity came directly as an anti-Putin sentiment? I'm not saying that people gave a fuck about Navalny because of his ideological background or anything. He was a nationalist himself. He was xenophobic. He was Islamophobic himself. But it didn't matter because people saw him as the leader of being anti-Putin. He was a placeholder for anti-Putin sentiment, for people to basically say without openly declaring that they were anti-Putin, which is perfectly understandable. That's my position on the matter. Not that like Navalny was a beacon for prosperity. He was just not Putin. A lot of his positions were also relatively similar to Vladimir Putin. He's bad in pretty similar ways to Vladimir Putin, just devoid of the same power that he had. He was terribly unpopular because he had multiple high-profile cases of scamming the Russian state-owned companies. It was only after these cases that he became anti-Putin. Okay, but remember, the funniest part about this is that, like, yes, the Russian oligarchy is profoundly corrupt. It only feeds into the same exact fucking point that I was making, which is that he's Putin in everything but the name, and that is enough for a decent amount of people. That is enough for a decent amount of people to say, okay, fuck this guy. I'm voting for this guy instead, or not him directly, but whoever he props up. This isn't entirely true. Navalny condemned the invasion of Ukraine. Okay, dude. NAFO and Z online LARPers are just two sides of the same coin. I agree. We're going to talk about the Yakuza case in a second. It's so sick. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny to look at a guy like Navalny and not recognize like why he was poisoned to begin with. It's because in Russia, in Vladimir Putin's Russia, which is liberal, by the way, okay, authoritarian, but certainly a liberal capitalist country, devoid of like any kind of even semblance of theoretical democracy. If you are outside of Vladimir Putin's sphere of influence and you gain a little bit of prominence, that spells trouble in your governance. It's showing that people are, regardless of what the cost may be, openly still saying like, fuck Vladimir Putin. You can't have that. If you're Vladimir Putin and you want to control every aspect of Russian life, you can't have anyone that is going to reach 19% popularity. That's why you get poisoned, and that's why you get killed. That's the reason why the supposed real opposition of Vladimir Putin is the Communist Party in Russia, which is not a real opposition to Vladimir Putin at all. Do you understand? If it was a real opposition to Vladimir Putin, then they would also find themselves falling out of windows. Anyway, Hasan, you're just spitballing here. What are your credentials to even talk about this? You're right. I'm just making this stuff up. Do you actually have a take that counters anything that I just mentioned? Or are you going to be like that other chatter that proved exactly my point that I was making. I think there is also a very funny irony. Discord will unionize on our ass. Okay, dude, sure. I think there is a funny irony in thinking that like the American State Department thinking that they have their guy, a quote unquote our guy in Navalny, when you know who was the original our guy? Vladimir Putin. That's why it's like additionally hilarious. Yeah, Putin was our guy. It's very odd to think that Putin was not our guy. Putin was our OG guy. Yeltsin was the OG our guy, sure, and then Putin. And look how that turned out, I guess. Well, I guess it didn't really turn into anything. It was more so just propped up as a perfect opposition so that we could continue having secret, scary foreign enemies. You need that sort of thing if you want to constantly develop a steady streamline of weapons manufacturing.